The name Toyota Land Cruiser has a prestige to it not often associated with Toyota. It is the pinnacle of Toyota SUV. Large, luxurious, capable, and reliable, truly the ultimate Land Rover competitor. That certainly remains the case in international markets with the 300 series Land Cruiser, although it's a bit of a different story here in the States. Toyota Sequoia now sits at the top of Toyota's SUV lineup, and this, the new Land Cruiser, is quite a bit different from the car that came before it. To explain, we need to jump over to Lexus's SUV lineup. If you're looking at buying or leasing a new vehicle, but you're not quite sure which car is right for you, I can help by curating a customized list of vehicle recommendations that fit your needs. Visit drakemoscow.com/buying a car to see how I can help you find a new car. A modern version of the old Toyota Land Cruiser is kind of sold here in the US in the form of the LX600. This is the Lexus version of that 300 series Land Cruiser that we no longer get here in the US. Now, a step down from LX is the Lexus GX, kind of a mid-size body-on-frame SUV. The GX has never had a direct Toyota brother until now, and that is what this vehicle is. A Toyota version of the new GX550. So today we're going to take a look at this vehicle, see how it compares to GX550, see how it fits into Toyota's very crowded SUV lineup, and see how it is. This new Land Cruiser kind of faces an uphill battle. It's a very popular name, that's why Toyota brought it back, but it's also just less vehicle than the models that came before it. People are going to expect the ultimate of Toyota SUVs, what used to be an $85,000 vehicle, but this is not that vehicle. I do think Toyota did capture a lot of the character of Land Cruiser with its new styling. It's quite different looking than the Land Cruisers that came before it, which were kind of trying to be luxury SUVs, but this definitely does give off-road capable, body-on-frame styling. I love the retro styling, especially in this 1958 edition. It also gets cool features like back glass that pops up independently, and I am overall just a fan of the way this vehicle looks. The last generation GX, again, because this is based on the GX, I was never a fan of how it looked, and the new generation, just the proportions of this vehicle are much more elegant. I especially do love how the new GX550 looks. I think that is a very sleek vehicle, and this new Land Cruiser definitely seems like a Toyota version of it. But we have to talk about the single biggest difference between this Land Cruiser and the one that came before it. Its engine. And I don't like it. This is a 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder hybrid system that makes 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. I've driven different versions of this engine in many Toyota and Lexus products. Think Toyota Grand Highlander, Toyota Tacoma, Lexus RX, and now again in this Land Cruiser. And I haven't liked it in any of those vehicles, but I especially don't like it here in the Cruiser, knowing what engine this had in prior generations, and even what the GX550 has. The GX550 does not have this engine, thankfully. It uses a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 that you also find in the Lexus LX600 and that you find a version of in the Toyota Sequoia. That engine is far more refined and fitting of this large 5,000-pound SUV. This engine doesn't fit this vehicle for several reasons, so let's dive into all of that. It starts with power delivery. This car makes a lot of torque, 465 pound-feet of it, but the hybrid system, which obviously aids in that high torque figure, also kind of gets in the way. The electric motors themselves only produce 48 horsepower. That, combined with the fact that the battery is quite small, means that when you're pulling away from a stop, while you initially start on electricity alone, the gas engine quickly kicks on and it produces a bout of torque that makes it really difficult to pull away from a stop smoothly. No matter how gently I feel like I am pressing the gas pedal, the car always seems to lurch as it transitions from electricity alone to gas. Now, this is something that would obviously become easier with time as you get used to the car, but I drive a lot of different new cars all of the time, and this one has stood out as particularly difficult. And all of this is made worse by how coarse this engine is. I've noticed this in every vehicle that this engine has been in, but even under minimal acceleration, the engine feels like it's straining. All of the time within the cabin of this Land Cruiser, you can hear and feel the 4-cylinder struggling to move this 5,000-pound SUV. And that brings us to my least favorite part about this engine. It has all of these shortcomings, all of these unfavorable characteristics, all in the name, supposedly, of efficiency. I mean, that's why it is turbocharged, that's why it is hybridized, instead of just having more cylinders, to be more efficient. except it's not. Now, despite my gloomy surroundings, I am in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is probably the worst place to test a car's efficiency. The terrain is up and down, the traffic is constant, and all of that hinders an internal combustion engine's efficiency. But this is a hybrid, and hybrids are supposed to excel more in stop-and-go traffic. Even though this engine has been hybridized for increased performance over increased efficiency, I still hoped to see some of those gains. But no, in my time with the Land Cruiser, I've averaged 17.6 mpg, which is only a couple of mpg better than I saw with the GX550. Now, you would probably see better mpg if you don't live in Los Angeles, if you live in a more rural place where you spend more time driving at highway speeds, where this car is the most efficient. But relative to all the vehicles I've tested, I'm still pretty disappointed by this engine. I thought and hoped it would perform better, but it did not.
All right, but just because I don't like this engine doesn't mean it's not fast. Flooring it here, going very much uphill, plenty of power, plenty of torque to accelerate quickly. It's no sports car. It is no EV with instant torque, but it is still plenty quick. Even if it's not all of that great in the way it delivers that power. And as it revs out, you can really hear just how rough this engine is. And all of the vibrations from the engine seem to come into the cabin. I don't think Toyota did a great job masking those sounds and those feelings in this cabin. And this is one of the larger vehicles I have driven this engine in, and it seems to strain more as a result. In the Lexus RX, it was noticeable, but not that bad. In the Toyota Tacoma, again, noticeable, but not that bad. I did not like it in the Grand Highlander, which is also a mid-size SUV, unibody versus body on frame like this one. But yeah, I don't think this four-cylinder really fits the character of this car. I wish it was a bigger engine. I think this car needs a bigger engine to feel substantial. This engine does not feel substantial. It feels like a four-cylinder. It feels kind of underpowered in a way. It feels like the amount that this engine obviously has to work in order to accelerate this vehicle really does come through, and that is disappointing. The hybrid system doesn't really come through. There are very few instances where you're actually driving an EV alone, and anytime you put your foot down, the engine will instantly kick on because the electric motors and the battery isn't that big and the electric motors are not that powerful. And then yeah, you just get so much torque, it's hard to accelerate smoothly. It's overall not a very great powertrain, not very refined. So if that is something that you worry about, I would definitely recommend the GX550 because I love that 3.5 liter twin turbo V6. It also has a little bit of the high torque in the beginning, making it hard to accelerate smoothly off the line, but the 10-speed auto in that vehicle, I think, handles the torque better than this 8-speed automatic, and it's overall just a more refined package.
All right, but enough about the engine. A car is not just its powertrain. Here in the back of the Toyota Land Cruiser, even though the vehicle is smaller, doesn't mean it's small. I at 6'2" have plenty of knee room, foot room, and headroom behind my ideal driving position. And this is pretty impressive for a body on frame SUV, which sometimes struggle with the packaging on the inside, but this is still very spacious. And I believe these seats do recline even more to a more comfortable position. There's no sunroof on this vehicle, but I'm quite fine with that. That makes headroom better, and I find them quite annoying, and I always have the shade closed. Anyways, you can fold down the center armrest to reveal a pair of cup holders. We have dual USB-C charging outlets back here, a 12-volt socket, automatic climate controls back here too, which I'm pretty impressed by, a third zone for the rear seats, because this is the 1958 edition Land Cruiser, so the base model. That's why we have these woven seats, which I don't mind. They're actually very comfortable, but it's nice to see a third zone automatic climate control here in the third row, even in the base Land Cruiser. Now, it is up front that you're gonna notice the biggest differences between the base Land Cruiser and the higher trim levels. You have an 8-inch touchscreen versus the 12.3-inch touchscreen found in the other Land Cruisers. And overall, there are more just hard touch materials, and it's rather black and plasticky in here. But I'm not really that peeved about it. This is the, rugged, hardcore Toyota SUV, so I think it kind of matches the aesthetic. And this smaller touchscreen is still just as functional as the larger one. You still get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Otherwise, you get 2 USB-C charging outlets and a third to connect to the infotainment system. I love the steering wheel on this car. All of the buttons are very blocky and easy to use. That kind of reminds me actually of the steering wheel on the GMC Hummer EV. The button design is rather similar, but really easy to press. And that kind of is the overall aesthetic of the interior of this vehicle. Lots of physical controls, all physical climate controls. You can switch from 4 high to 4 low with this dial. I think you might have to be in neutral. No, you can switch in park, I guess. Locking center and rear differential. Different drive mode selector. It's definitely a bit more utilitarian than the interior of the GX550, but I think that is perfect. That suits this vehicle. And I actually prefer all of the physical controls you get in this car versus the GX550's interior, which has a few more touch controls. And these steering wheel controls are really excellent. Big fan of that. And I do like that you get Toyota spelled out across the steering wheel as well.
Now, one thing I really like about this vehicle actually is the suspension. It is quite floaty over bumps, quite comfortable. I think that is largely aided by the 18-inch rims that we have on this 1958 Land Cruiser. They do not look good, nor do the tires look good on this car. I don't think there are any wheel and tire combos on the Land Cruiser, or really GX550 for that matter, that look good. I don't know, I think the proportions, Toyota didn't really nail the proportions for that, but you can obviously get aftermarket ones for that. But a benefit of these 18-inch rims is the ride quality. It is very floaty, very comfortable, even over very uneven pavement. This car still really does offer a supple ride. And the body on frame nature of this car also comes through in its ride and its driving dynamics. When you slam on the brakes, there's a lot of nosedive. When you accelerate hard, there's a lot of lift in the front. And so I kind of like that feeling in an SUV, especially a big boxy SUV like this. That is the true characteristic of these cars, and that quality, that character does come through in this Land Cruiser, which I am happy to report.
So that's the new Toyota Land Cruiser. I actually do like this car, especially this 1958 version. It has Land Rover looks, a lot of space on the inside, incredible capability, which I really didn't get a chance to show you guys, but this is still a very capable vehicle, and a powerful, if not my favorite, powertrain. All of this is for just $60,000 as spec'd on this car, which is a really good price. Now, as you start to approach $70,000, which you can on the Land Cruiser, I would hold your horses because the Lexus GX550, which has a much better powertrain in my opinion than this Land Cruiser, starts at just $64,000, not that much more than this Land Cruiser. It's obviously going to be a base, lower end GX550, but that powertrain is worth it. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.